Hi, I'm Ryan from Los Angeles. I work as a senior product marketing manager at Adobe. And after completing the core portion of FEMBA, I feel a lot of different emotions. Getting back to school in the fall was kind of a roller coaster of getting back to class in person, social events, meeting people, networking, COVID restrictions being lifted a little bit, and life kind of adjusting as a result. And it's been a fun ride so far. My life, I went through a lot of changes in the fall. I was based out of Seattle all of last year, taking classes completely online, remotely. And then in September, I drove down to LA, moved my entire life. And at the same time that was happening, I took a new job at Adobe. I was at Compass previously, real estate technology company. And so all of those things with the mix of school, getting back in person and finishing core was a lot to handle, but it was super rewarding. And I feel like starting, 2022, I'm just ready to kind of build on a lot of that accomplishment and, growth and kind of see the fruition of it for this next year. But I'm excited for getting into electives. I'm excited for the next year and a half of the program. And I'm really excited to continue just having this weekly, experience that we've been having. And that's been really enriching and given a lot back to our lives. So I'm really excited about what this next quarter looks like. Course had a lot of great takeaways this year and last year. Every time you take a core class, you realize that it's very strategically well planned. Every concept stacks upon the other concept. By the time you get to strategy in fall quarter, you realize, wow, this has, econ, data and decisions. There's some organizational behavior stuff in here. We have, there's accounting work you have to do. So it really shows that all of these things that you're learning are really kind of building you up into becoming this better version of yourself in the business world. And that was kind of my biggest takeaway, which is, there's a lot that you just don't know. And that was the reason I wanted to come back to school, to kind of fill in those gaps. Full disclosure, I went to undergrad. I did business school at the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington. Took a lot of these classes, same textbook from college. It was the same textbook we used here. Obviously, the versions have been updated to the 10th degree. But what I've learned, for students who are probably asking, like, I've done B school undergrad, I'm going to go take my MBA. I will say that the level of depth that you get to in the MBA, for instance, this last quarter we took operations. We did maybe in your undergrad class, you'll do maybe a surface level skim of the first couple chapters, some of the core concepts. We go very fast, very much in depth in the MBA. And it's the same thing with every subject, like getting in accounting, getting into the depth of reading 10Ks and analyzing, companies' strategies versus just doing, the asset and liability and equity equations that you maybe do in undergrad. So you're getting an extreme level of depth, and you're seeing how these concepts are building upon each other. And you're having to figure out, which tool to take out of the tool shed, which lens and framework to use to kind of analyze the problem. And so I think it's helped me in terms of, how I think about these concepts at work, thinking outside of the box, bringing in different perspectives. I'm not a super quant heavy person. I'm a marketer. I do love data, but I don't really go to a balance sheet. It's the first thing I look at. I look at the customer and I think about what's happening in the context of the business and the competition. But this is kind of giving me the comfort to go and look at all these different facets of the business and kind of expand my skill set. So core has really shown that, you can't really disregard any of these subjects. You play your strengths, but there's a lot of stuff that you have to understand kind of how it works and who professionals are in these spaces and how they're thinking and ways you can lean into them. So it's been a great year and a half, and I've learned a ton. There's still so much I don't know and so much to learn. So I'm excited about that. Moving into my electives, I'm really looking forward to the specific classes I'm taking this quarter, which are incentives and motivations in organizations and marketing strategy and planning. As I'm looking to build out my elective schedule, I'm not doing any specific type of specialization. I think, one of the beautiful things about Anderson is, they've given you this amazing menu of classes that you can look at and kind of build your own recipes and figure out what sounds interesting to you. I'm personally, outside of not specializing, I'm really thinking about stuff that capitalizes on my strengths in marketing, stuff related to organizational behavior. I've worked in big organizations. I've recruiting, managing people, leading people, how to talk to people, coach people, all those things really interest me because I feel like they've had, outside of the specific day-to-day work, they've been the most impactful to how teams operate, high performing teams, just different challenges that I've faced at work, whether at a startup environment or a large, big company environment. So I think about those things versus just a specific track. But I think, my advice is just find classes you find engaging and interesting, because you're going to get the most engagement, interaction, and kind of, knowledge out of them and excitement out of them. But yeah, I think I'm kind of taking it quarter by quarter. I'm excited about that flexibility. And I think it's just the ability to mix with, we were in sections for the first year and a half of FEMBA. So mixing in with other students and, seeing these teachers that are, have been teaching these specialized electives for a long period of time. So I think it's going to be a fun quarter. I'm honored to continue to be a voice of FEMBA. If I were to repeat core again, the advice I would give myself would be, to just be a little bit more present. I feel I'm a super present person, very intentional about things, but, I will probably say, first of all, when I think about the things, I don't regret anything I've done. I felt like I've applied myself to school. I've tried to be very generous. I've been a good partner to people in teams. I've reached out to people. I felt like I've been a good person, and I feel good about that. But I feel like there's times where in your head, as it's going by, every quarter's 10 weeks, you get to week 3 and week 4, and, enthusiasm starts to die down a little bit. You get a little bit more tired. I probably just tell myself, this is the last time in your life, hopefully, knock on wood, if I don't go back and get a PhD or anything. This is the last time you're going to have this experience. So just appreciate it. Don't wish for it to go by faster. Don't wish for it to be done any easier. Don't wish for it to be, more of a blur than it is, given that we're doing this in a pandemic. But it's, just appreciate you're having this once in a lifetime experience, and just open your eyes more, like look at things and soak in these moments and these memories with these people and these classes. And, there's always opportunities. I could have probably not been as tired and tried to really just switch myself on after a hard day of work. And it's been a long day in class, but to I think, have gratitude. Just, if I could give myself one word of advice, it would just be grateful. Just have gratitude, be grateful. I worked so hard to get into this program, suffering through the GMAT and, getting rejected from schools and interviewing, and to just be grateful that this is, we're here, and, hopefully you guys don't kick me out but to just appreciate the experience. That's the last piece of advice I give myself.